Most people only ever see the surface. They look at the tip of the iceberg and assume that is the whole story. The visible struggles, the obvious falls, the parts of life you cannot hide. But beneath the water lies the greater truth, the weight of unseen moments, the quiet battles, the small choices that keep you from sinking. This chapter is not about what floated above for everyone to see. It is about what was hidden under the surface. The compassion, the guilt, the visions, the whispers of faith, and the flickers of knowledge that carried me through the cold. Here are a few of those experiences. They were the silent stones beneath my feet, shaping me while the world thought I was drowning, and each one, in its own way, carried victory. 1. Compassion while high. Even while I was battling my own struggles, I never stopped giving. I remember driving one day when a couple asked me for some change. I didn't have much myself, but I handed them more than they expected. Their faces lit up, and they thanked me again and again, surprised that I would give so freely. Moments like that reminded me who I was. I wasn't thinking about my own pain or what I was going through. I just wanted to ease theirs. That's how my heart worked, no matter what phase I was in. Even in the hardest seasons, I still had gentleness inside of me, and I couldn't hold it back from others. 2. The staircase in winter. There was a winter when I crossed paths with a girl who had no place to go. I found her sitting alone on a staircase, shivering in the cold. The sight of her broke something inside me. Her loneliness pressed on my chest like a weight. I didn't have a home of my own at that time, but I still wanted to give her comfort. I remember quietly taking food from my family and bringing it to her. It wasn't much, but it was what I could do. She ate, and for a moment, the staircase didn't feel so empty. I sat with her because I couldn't bear to let her suffer in silence. My heart was heavy, but it was also alive. Even in my struggle, I was pulled to care for someone else who was forgotten. 3. The silent cry of children. There were times when I watched children grow up around parents who smoked, drank, and carried habits that dimmed their spirit. I wasn't a parent myself, but something about those children pierced my heart. I could see the emptiness in their eyes, a silence in their little bodies that spoke louder than words ever could. They couldn't say what they felt, but their body language told the truth. It was in the way they moved, the way they sat, the quiet weight in their small shoulders. They felt everything, the chaos around them, the neglect, the sadness, but they had no voice to express it. Those moments softened me. They made me wish the parents could see what I was seeing. They made me want better for the children, because I could sense their souls quietly crying for something more. 4. Witnessing abuse. I came across so many abusive relationships in those days. Most of the time I stayed quiet, just watching, my eyes taking in more than my voice could say. Even in those circles where people were getting high, I tried to show up with a caring heart, but the things I saw left me heavy inside. I remember sitting in the middle of it all, feeling both present and distant at the same time. I would notice the way someone shrank under another's words, or the fear that flickered in their eyes when they were belittled. I felt bad watching it happen, but I also felt powerless. Those moments made me question reality. Why did people let others hurt them like that? Why were they so afraid to say, "I'm in pain. I deserve better"? The silence of it all haunted me. It showed me how deep fear can root itself into someone's spirit, and how easy it is for pain to go unspoken. 5. Toxic games. There were times when men would try to use me to spark jealousy in the women they were with. They would say things just to get a reaction, hoping to stir up drama. I hated it. I would immediately try to reassure the other woman, telling her the truth, that I wasn't interested in her man, that I didn't want to be part of that game. Being surrounded by those kinds of situations only made me feel more uncomfortable. The circles I found myself in were full of toxic energy. People got high, and the lines between respect and disrespect blurred. Flirting became careless, loyalty became weak, and suddenly everybody was playing with each other's hearts as if it meant nothing. In those moments, I realized how out of place I really was. My spirit didn't belong in those games. The more I saw it, the more I felt the discomfort in my body. A quiet truth, whispering that I needed something cleaner, something real. 6. The abaya and the prayer mat. There were days when I would put away my pants and wigs and instead wrap myself in my abaya and hijab. In those moments, I felt beautiful in a way that makeup or hairstyles could never give me. The fabric wasn't just clothing, it was dignity. It was a reminder of who I really was beneath all the chaos. Sometimes, I would even carry my prayer mat with me, walking into spaces where people were getting high. They were still my friends, but I found myself reaching for something different. My prayers weren't strong then, and I didn't always keep up with them, but every time I spread that mat out, it pulled me closer to wanting more. Praying in those moments wasn't about perfection, it was about remembering. Even in weak prayers, my heart stirred with the desire to come back to Allah. And that quiet longing reminded me that He had never left me, even when I was far from myself. 7. Whispers of knowledge. When my mind finally grew quiet enough, I would turn to my YouTube playlist. I played audio versions of books, lessons about knowledge, growth, and how to shape a stronger mindset. Sometimes I left them on while I slept, believing the words could seep into my spirit, even if I wasn't awake to hear them. It was the first time in a long time that my mind felt clear enough to truly take in information. Concepts that once slipped past me started to make sense. The words didn't just sit in my ears, they sank into me. I remember lying there, listening, realizing that knowledge itself was becoming a kind of medicine. Every sentence felt like a hand pulling me out of the fog. For the first time in years, I felt the joy of understanding, like I was waking up to life all over again. 8. Sensitivity overload. There came a point where I started disappearing from social media. Little by little, I cut people off. My body had become too sensitive to everything I was seeing and hearing. Every video, every status, every post carried an energy that pressed into me. I didn't just scroll past content. I absorbed it. I felt the emotions behind people's words as if they were mine. It was overwhelming, like the whole world's noise was echoing inside me. Eventually, it became too much to carry. And yet, beneath the heaviness, there was this strange awareness. I won't lie. A part of me felt special, like I was tapped into something deeper than the surface everyone else was swimming on. It was exhausting, but it was also the beginning of understanding just how open my spirit had become. 9. The stillness of isolation. In my isolation, I found myself reaching for new beginnings. I started tracing the curves of Arabic letters, copying them carefully from YouTube channels, letting the language of the Quran flow through my pen. Around that same time, I met a man through an Islamic app who shared pieces of knowledge with me, offering guidance that felt gentle and steady. But it wasn't just him. Inside my home, it was me, my siblings, and my mother, all of us learning Islamic history together. The house became a quiet classroom where faith was whispered between books, lessons, and conversations. It was simple, but it was beautiful. No friends, no crowds, no noise, just family, books, Arabic lessons, and a calm that wrapped around me like mercy. In those still days, I realized how peaceful growth could feel when it was rooted in faith. 10. Shedding old clothes. During my isolation, my mother carried a kind of wisdom I didn't yet have for myself. She told me to throw away the clothes I had worn during my hardest days, the ones I carried on the streets, the ones I lived in while I was outside so much, drifting through struggle. She said it was time to let them go. At first, it felt strange. They were just clothes after all. But as I folded them and placed them aside, I realized they held memories of wandering, of pain, of nights when I didn't know who I was becoming. My mother then handed me new clothes, simple and fresh. It wasn't just fabric. It was a quiet symbol of a new beginning. With every piece I let go of, I felt like I was leaving behind a version of me that no longer needed to survive. And with every new piece I accepted, I felt like I was stepping into someone I was becoming. 11. The staircase vision. Before my mind grew clear, I was given a vision that felt like a lesson from Allah Himself. I was lying down when I saw a great staircase, shaped almost like a pyramid. Each step was filled with people, and what struck me was how no one climbed alone. On every level, someone was reaching down to pull another person up. Those who had just been lifted would then turn and lift the ones below them. Step by step, hand by hand, everyone was helping each other rise higher. In that vision, I understood something about reality. We are not meant to walk this life in isolation. We are supposed to reach back for one another, to guide, to uplift, to pull each other toward the top. That image never left me. It was Allah's way of showing me that life is built on helping hands, not solitary climbs. 12. Playing for stupid. When I was surrounded by people who got high, I noticed how often they played others for stupid. The thought haunted me that one day someone could tweak out, lose their mind completely, and turn violent. I carried the fear that I might not survive one of those nights. That fear stayed with me because it wasn't just about drugs. The more I looked at life, the more I realized that even sober, many people walk around pretending, underestimating you, treating you like you don't see what's really happening. It was a dangerous truth, not only in high circles, but in reality itself. It scared me, but it also sharpened me. That realization made me cautious, made me aware. It taught me that surviving wasn't just about avoiding substances. It was also about learning how to see through the games people play. 13. Where are they now? I used to sit and wonder where the people were. The ones who first influenced me to drink and smoke. The ones who made it seem normal, even harmless. But by the time I was at my lowest, facing homelessness, they were nowhere around. That's when it hit me. I had parted ways with all of them. The same people who had once cheered me on or handed me my first drink had vanished. Their voices didn't echo in my reality anymore. And yet, even after they were gone, I still found myself reaching for the bottle, still drinking. It made no sense. Why was I continuing the cycle when the people who had introduced me to it had already disappeared from my life? If they weren't around me anymore, then why should I keep their habits alive inside me? I could leave the substance behind, the same way they left me. 14. Conversations about God. Whenever I was around people who were high or drunk, my heart would instantly drift toward God. In the middle of the smoke and laughter, I would start asking questions no one expected. How do you feel about God? What keeps you away from Him? Why don't you want to change your life? I was already in the process of shifting, searching for something more, so every conversation became an invitation, not to judge, but to pull them with me, even just a little, toward a better future. I wanted them to feel the tug I was feeling, the quiet voice inside that wouldn't let me go. What intrigued me most was hearing their answers. Everyone carried their own reasons, their own distance, their own pain. I listened closely, as if understanding their struggles could help me make sense of my own. In those moments, even surrounded by substances, my spirit was reaching for something higher, and I hoped I could take them with me. 15. The innocence of children. During those stages, I loved babysitting children. Most of the time, I was sober around them, and that gave me space to really be present. I would play with them, dance to music with them, laugh with them in ways that felt light and pure. But beneath the laughter, there was a sadness I could never shake. These children had no idea about the reality of their parents, the struggles, the habits, the choices that shaped their homes. They carried innocence while shadows hovered over them. Watching them was bittersweet. Their joy was real, but so was the sadness I felt for them. I knew too much about the weight they couldn't yet see. It made me love them harder, protect them more, because I wanted to give them even a glimpse of happiness untouched by the pain waiting around them. 16. The White Rock. I went through a phase where I collected rocks, believing they carried spiritual power. One day, I wore a white stone as a necklace, hoping it would bring me calm. For a few days, I cried while wearing it, and when the tears finally cooled, I convinced myself maybe the rock was working. But deep down, I knew the truth. Relying on a rock was like saying Allah wasn't enough. By then, I was starting to grow stronger in my deen, beginning to recognize the difference between false comforts and real faith. My mother caught me wearing it once and told me firmly, "Take that off. If you do things like that, you are going against Islam." Her words struck me, and guilt washed over me. I took the rock off that day, realizing I didn't need to hold on to stones. What I needed was to hold on to Allah. 17. The voice. While drinking. There were times when I relapsed, and every time I picked up a drink, I couldn't escape the thought of Allah. The moment I lifted the glass to my lips, I felt the weight of the sin. It wasn't casual for me. It was a battle between the desire to escape and the voice of my conscience. When I was drunk, that voice grew louder. It pressed into me. "Why are you drunk? Didn't you say you quit? You know this is wrong. You know you're not being the Muslim you want to be." The voice would not let me rest until I finally passed out. No one around me knew I was carrying this war inside. To them, I was just another person drinking. But inwardly, I was drowning in guilt and conversations with myself that never stopped. Every sip reminded me that I couldn't escape Allah, even in my weakest moments. 18. The first book. When I first woke up from the illusion of life and my mind began to clear, I picked up a book while walking outside. 21 Debated Issues in American Politics. It was the very first book I reached for in my awakening, and it opened my eyes in a way I wasn't expecting. As I read, it felt like someone had slipped me the code to the world I was living in. For the first time, I could see the systems, the debates, the hidden structures shaping the country around me. It was as if the matrix had been revealed in real time. That moment changed me. My interest in knowledge was born right there, in the middle of those pages. It was the start of a new hunger. To understand, to question, to learn. Reality itself began to shift, because now I could see it differently. 19. Magic in the pages. Reading and writing became alive for me. Every time I opened a book, especially history, I felt like I was catching up on a world I had missed. It was as if I had been asleep my whole life and was now waking up, brand new to the earth again. Each page I turned felt like magic. Knowledge wasn't just words on paper. It was a light, unfolding in my mind. And when I carried that feeling into nature, the trees, the air, the sky, everything shimmered with the same wonder. Life itself began to feel beautiful again, not because anything outside had changed, but because I was changing. The pages and the earth both whispered the same truth. I was alive, and there was more to discover. People only ever saw the surface of my life. They saw the relapses, the mistakes, the times it seemed to take me too long to let go. To them, it might have looked like I was choosing my struggle on purpose, but beneath the surface, so much more was happening. Underneath was guidance. Underneath were lessons. Underneath were silent victories that no one else could see but Allah. What looked like delay was really depth. What looked like weakness was really shaping. That is why this chapter is called Iceberg, because my journey was never just what the world saw above the water. It was the unseen weight beneath it that kept me afloat, carrying me back to Allah step by step. Thank you for listening. Please follow and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.